Counsel, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just a couple more questions. You mentioned that the Arvizo family returned to Neverland a number of times in 2003, right?
That is correct, yes.
Do you know how they got to Neverland?
I believe they did on the limo.
A limo?
Yes.
Was it your impression that the Arvizos had access to a limousine service when they wanted to?
Objection. Foundation.
I think there is a foundation, Your Honor.
All sustain the objection.
You indicated that on at least one occasion you called a limousine service so the Arvizos could leave Neverland, right?
That is correct, yes.
And you said on the other occasion you took Michael's Rolls-Royce and drove them yourself, right?
Correct.
And that was in the middle of the night when Janet wanted to leave, right?
That is correct, yes.
And I believe you said on other occasions when the Arvizos left Neverland, it was your understanding they always had a limousine, correct?
That is correct, yes.
Do you know who would arrange for the limousines to transport the Arvizos?
I called them personally.
You would do it personally?
Yes.
How many times do you think you personally called a limousine service to transport the Arvizos?
I think it was around 3 times. Somewhere around there.
Is there a particular limousine service that you would normally call?
It's out of Santa Barbara. And it's called, what is it called? Limo Link, I believe.
Okay, now, you wouldn't discuss with Michael Jackson the fact that you wanted to call a limousine service, right?
No.
You had enough authority to do that if you thought it was the appropriate thing to do, right?
That is correct, yes.
And was it your understanding that from time to time guests of Mr. Jackson would need a limousine?
Correct.
And you would get a call from someone asking for you to arrange for a limousine, correct?
That is correct, yes.
Actually, Mr. Jackson was pretty generous with arranging for limousines to take his guests off the property, wasn't he?
Correct, yes.
Do you recall Janet Arvizo from time to time leaving the premises to go into town?
I believe there was only one time.
And did she talk to you about that?
Yes, she did.
Was it your understanding she was getting a body wax that day?
That is correct, yes.
And was it arranged for a limousine to take her to the body wax place?
No, it wasn't.
How did she get to the body wax place?
I sent one of the maids with her.
So you arranged for a maid to drive her to the body wax?
Yes.
That was a salon, right?
That is correct.
And was that in Los Olivos, if you know?
Los Olivos or Solvang, somewhere in there.
Okay. She was away for quite a while that day, correct?
Correct, yes.
Do you recall it being 3 or 4 hours?
Somewhere around there, yes.
Now, did Janet tell you she wanted to get a body wax at a salon that day?
Objection. Hearsay.
Sustained.
Why did you arrange for one of the maids to drive Janet Arvizo off the premises to get a body wax?
Objection. Foundation. Hearsay.
Sustained.
Do you know why one of the maids drove Janet Arvizo off the premises to get a body wax?
Same objection.
Sustained.
Were you in charge of the maid who drove Janet Arvizo off the premises to get a body wax?
Yes, I was.
Did you ask the maid to do that?
Yes, I did.
Objection. Hearsay.
Overruled.
Why did you ask the maid to do that?
Well, I figured it was a...
Objection. Hearsay. Foundation.
Sustained.
Do you know which car the maid used?
Objection. Relevance.
Sustained.
Just a couple more questions. Do you recall Mr. Jackson traveling to Florida during 2003?
Yes.
Do you recall Mr. Jackson traveling to Las Vegas during 2003?
Yes.
Do you recall him traveling anywhere else, if you can recall?
Pretty much, that I can remember was just Florida and Vegas.
Okay, finally, the prosecutor asked you questions about some beds in the theater. Remember that?
Correct.
Aren't those hospital beds for handicapped kids?
Yes, they are.
No further questions.
Mr. Salas, those hospital beds in the theater, Does Mr. Jackson use those beds personally?
Occasionally, yes, to watch a movie.
Do other kids who were not handicapped use those beds?
Yes, they do.
As far as the limousines go, you testified on direct examination that you were told not to let the Arvizos off the property unless you got approval. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
And you said that you arranged for 3 limousines, 3 times that you arranged for limousines to transport the Arvizos off the property?
That I can remember, yes.
Okay. Was this all, those 3 times? Were they all in 2003 during that period of time you've testified about?
I believe it was one time in 2002.
Okay. So the other 2 times that you ordered a limousine service to transport the Arvizos, did you get permission from somebody at the ranch to let them off the property?
Yes, I did.
Who did you get permission from?
I got permission from, it was Frank, yes.
Alright. You talked a little bit about a time at the dinner table when you suspected that Gavin had been drinking. Do you remember?
Correct.
Testifying about that? Was Michael Jackson present at the dinner table that night?
No, he was not.
Was Frank present at the dinner table that night?
Yes, he was.
And did you ultimately determine whether Gavin had been drinking that night?
Didn't really specify that, but just by the way he was acting, I knew that he was drinking.
Was there another time when you saw Gavin when he appeared to be drinking?
That was the only time.
And that only time that you saw him drinking, that he appeared to be intoxicated, what was he doing that made you think that?
The way he was acting, just not normal. Just his reactions.
Had you had occasion to see Gavin a number of times before that or after that when he was acting normal, in your opinion?
Ask the question again.
I guess my question is, did you have a good frame of reference for judging whether Gavin was acting normal or not?
Objection. Vague. Foundation.
Overruled. You may answer.
That was the only time I saw that I noticed that.
Okay. So my question was, did you spend enough time around Gavin to feel as if you could make a call as to whether or not he was acting drunk or not? Do you understand that question?
Yes, I do. I would say yes,
Okay. And how was he acting that made you think he was? How was he acting differently on that evening that made you think he was drunk?
Pretty simple. Just when somebody's drunk, you can tell by the way they look, their reaction, of the way they look, the way they talk. Just verbal, the way he was talking.
Was it obvious to you he'd been drinking?
I would say yes.
And you said Frank was at the table. Who else was at the table that night?
I believe it was Vinny and some of Frank's guests, I believe it was a couple girls, something like that.
Was Gavin's mother around?
No, she was not.
Now, as far as where the kids slept, and maybe I'll back up, because I don't think I asked this question. What time of day was it that you saw Gavin where you thought he'd been drinking?
I would say it was about around 9 o'clock, nighttime.
Nighttime?
Uh-huh.
Was Mr. Jackson on the property at that time?
Yes, he was.
When children slept in Mr. Jackson's bedroom, do you personally know, where they slept in the bedroom, as far as where they slept, upstairs or downstairs? Did you see it?
I didn't see exactly who slept on Mr. Jackson's bed, but I know there was kids there and, yes.
So you never spent the night in Mr. Jackson's bedroom, I take it?
No.
So you don't know where the kids slept after you left the room?
No.
But you were in the room at times when kids were there?
Right, yes.
And in terms of these kids, were they all boys that slept in Mr. Jackson's room?
Pretty much, yes.
Now, Mr. Mesereau asked you about the first-class treatment that everyone received at Neverland. And you basically said that the adults got first-class treatment, too?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, so did the kids get the same first-class treatment that the adults did?
Absolutely.
Were they basically treated just like the adults?
Just like the adults.
And these kids, when they were at Neverland during the 20 years you were there, did these kids ever have supervision?
Do you mean by
Neverland? Any organized supervision of these children while they were at Neverland?
We really didn't have supervision. They had security that would keep an eye on the guests, or even the Neverland staff working at certain places. They had to make sure that the kids were safe. Not supervising them, but just for safety.
Okay, So if an employee was around and saw something dangerous, they might intervene. Is that fair to say?
Of course, yes.
But the employees, they weren't running around supervising these kids where they were.
No.
They were allowed to run around wherever they wanted, do whatever they wanted?
Absolutely.
Objection. Leading.
Sustained.
Some of this is offered as impeachment.
Well, that was leading, so.
All right. Now, as far as the busloads of children go, were these children treated differently than the children who were guests at Neverland?
No.
Were the busloads of children allowed to spend the night in Michael Jackson's room?
None of those kids spent the night in his room.
Okay. Were they given the access code to the house?
No.
Okay. Were they allowed to? Were these children? Did they bring their own supervision with them, adult supervision?
Yes, they did.
Was it organized? Were they organized as to where they would go and how they would spend their time at Neverland?
Absolutely, yes.
Was Mr. Jackson even there when those busloads of kids would arrive or be there?
Many times he was there. Many times he wasn't there.
Okay. When he was there, would he always come out or sometimes come out?
Sometimes come out.
So there were times busloads of kids would arrive and Mr. Jackson wouldn't even come out to say hi?
Yes. There was times that he.
Objection. Leading. Misstates the evidence.
Overruled. The answer is yes. Next question.
As far as Janet, when she left Neverland the first time with her family, in the interview with the sheriff's department, didn't you say that, the whole family, they were not allowed to go nowhere?
Yes. That's what I said, yes.
And that, they had them there always, and they were with supervision.
According to what she told me, yes.
Didn't you say Frank Tyson was one of the individuals involved in the handling of the Arvizo family?
Correct.
And did you say that ranch employees were required to go through Frank Tyson with questions or problems regarding the Arvizo family?
That is correct, yes.
Did you also say that you believed Tyson would then, in turn, go through Mr. Jackson?
Objection. Leading.
This is impeachment.
No foundation.
The objection is overruled. You may answer.
Did you say that Tyson would then, in turn, go through Mr. Jackson?
Correct, yes.
Did you say that the Arvizo family was not being allowed to leave the Neverland Ranch even though the mother wished to leave with her children?
That's correct, yes.
In the grand jury, when you testified, you were asked this question. You were asked whether or not you believed Janet Arvizo and her family was being kept against their will. You said, yes. Is that true?
Yes.
Objection. Foundation. Leading.
Offered as impeachment.
Overruled. He said, yes.
And is that a true statement?
He said, yes.
Okay. You said, I believe when Mr. Mesereau was up here, you said that Mrs. Arvizo was never forcibly kept at Neverland. Is that true?
That is correct, yes.
So no one ever used physical force on her?
No.
You said that when you took her home, that she told you that she was. You told Mr. Mesereau that she was upset with the people at Neverland Ranch?
Objection. Misstates the evidence.
Upset with Ronald? I believe it was Dieter.
Do you want to rephrase the question?
Yeah. You told Mr. Mesereau that when you were taking Janet and the children home that first time, that she was upset with Dieter. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Didn't you also previously state that she said she was upset with Frank as well, or no? You tell me.
No.
Now, you also told Mr. Mesereau that at that time, when she left Neverland Ranch the first time, she was not angry at Michael Jackson.
That is correct, yes.
Okay. After she left Neverland that first time, did you ever talk to her about whether she was still angry at Michael Jackson?
No.
Did you have much contact with her after that first time?
No.
Do you have any idea whether she is angry at Michael Jackson today?
I have no idea.
You mentioned that you allowed your daughter Sandra to visit Mr. Jackson at Neverland.
That is correct, yes.
When was that?
91, 92, somewhere around there maybe. Maybe later than that. I'm not quite sure.
So early 90s?
I would say so, yes.
Was it one occasion?
I believe it was about 3 times.
3 times that she personally spent time with Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Were all 3 of those occasions in 90, 91, in that early 1990s?
It was during the same time, yes.
Did you ever allow your daughter to sleep with Mr. Jackson?
She never slept over there.
Okay. Would you ever allow your daughter to sleep with Mr. Jackson?
Objection. Calls for speculation. Leading. Foundation.
It's argumentative. Sustained.
Knowing what you know today, based upon all your time at Neverland, do you believe this place is a healthy place, would be a healthy place for your daughter to visit?
Objection. Opinion. Foundation. Relevance.
This was offered as an opinion as to.
The objection as sustained.
Is it true to say that the kids do get hurt at Neverland?
Objection. Relevance. Beyond the scope. Leading.
Sustained.
Do kids ever get hurt at Neverland?
Same objection.
Sustained.
Counsel asked the question.
I never asked that question.
Talked about safety.
All right. Quit talking to each other.
Yes, sir. You said that some people invade Neverland or come in from the outside, correct?
Correct, yes.
How far is Neverland away from the nearest town?
6 miles.
How do these people get out there?
Objection. Foundation.
If you know.
The foundation as sustained.
Okay. Do you know how these people get out there?
Yes, sir.
How do they get out there?
Driving.
Okay. So these people who visit, who try to get into Neverland have a car.
Yes.
Where is the car?
They park on the outside of the property.
You also said that Janet complained about being separated from Michael, that Dieter was separating her from Michael. Yes?
Yes. That was her expression, yes.
Didn't she say that she was? Didn't she complain that Dieter was separating her from Michael Jackson and her children?
Not exactly what she said. She said that she was being separated from Michael.
Okay. But didn't she reference her children when she was talking about that?
Objection. Asked and answered.
Sustained.
You say, not exactly. What do you mean?
She never mentioned the kids.
Did she ever complain about being separated from her kids?
No, sir.
Objection. Hearsay.
When Janet was at Neverland.
Wait. There was an objection.
I'm sorry.
I'll withdraw the objection.
Go ahead, counsel. Laughter.
When Janet was at Neverland, did she? Well, let me strike that. Do you know where Janet would spend most of her time while she was at Neverland?
She spent most of her time in the guest house.
Do you know where she would take her meals?
Many times most of the time she took it in the room. There was times that she went in the kitchen.
When Mr. Mesereau asked you if things kind of run themselves or keep running at Neverland when Michael is not there, who is it that makes the determination in general about how Neverland is run as a ranch? Who is it that makes the ultimate call?
Okay, for the place would be run, we have a staff. We have a ranch manager. And that's how we do it. That's how they used to do it. Just do it together.
Who tells the ranch manager how he wants that place run?
On the major decisions, I guess it comes from LA also.
Does Michael have anything to do with how he wants that place run?
I'm not sure if he has something to do with that, but he will tell you what he likes.
When Mr. Jackson is on the property, do the employees act differently?
No, they shouldn't.
There's no difference between when he's on the property or off the property.
No, because the place needs to run the same way whether he's there or not.
But isn't Neverland Ranch run exactly the way Michael Jackson wants it?
Objection. Leading and asked and answered.
Offered as impeachment.
Sustained.
Who is the person who ultimately makes the determination as to what happens at Neverland?
Objection. It's been asked and answered a couple of times.
Sustained.
Okay. Let me back off, then, and go to, okay. So sometimes someone in Los Angeles makes the decision, right? Who tells the person in Los Angeles what they want?
Objection. Foundation.
Sustained.
Have you ever seen guns on Neverland Ranch?
Not now, okay.
Not now?
Before, at the beginning, yes.
There were guns?
Yes.
Tell me about it.
That was at the beginning when Mr. Jackson bought the place. Security was carrying guns.
Was there a period of time when guns were not kept, the security was not armed?
Yes, it came to the point that I guess Mr. Jackson didn't want any guns at the place, and nobody was carrying any weapons anymore.
Did that ever change again?
No.
Was there a time when a few people carried guns at Neverland?
Not that I was aware of.
You said that when the Arvizo children were there, that Mr. Jackson was in constant meetings. You also said that he was constantly playing with the children.
That is correct, yes.
So he was doing both of those things at the same time or?
Not at the same time. You know, when he was in meetings, he was in meetings. When he had some time free, he was playing with kids or he was by himself.
Okay. Who was he having these constant meetings with? Who was there when he was having these constant meetings?
Hard to remember. Many people.
Okay. How about, was Frank Tyson one of them?
Not really.
But he did have meetings with Frank?
Objection. Asked and answered.
Sustained.
You also said that Mr. Jackson was. You answered some questions about him taking prescription medication.
Correct.
Do you know the difference between somebody who is drunk and somebody who is taking some medication?
Objection. Vague.
Overruled.
Go ahead.
No, I guess I don't have a way of describing that.
Well, were there times when you were serving Mr. Jackson alcohol when he appeared to be drunk?
Yes.
And do you know how often Mr. Jackson would have alcohol?
Objection. Vague as to time.
I'll be specific. During this period in early 2003.
He was having a regular basis.
Daily?
I said regular basis.
Could you smell alcohol on him when you saw him during these periods he appeared to be drunk?
No, I never got so close to him to be able to smell.
You said that Mr. Jackson's policy was not to let kids in the wine cellar. Was this a?
That is correct, yes.
Was that a written policy?
That was a policy, yes.
Was it okay for kids to be in the wine cellar if he was there?
Objection. Leading.
Overruled. You may answer.
I believe when he was there, I guess it was okay for the kids, yes.
Okay. And did you testify that there were times when he was in the wine cellar with children?
Yes.
Objection. Misstates the evidence.
I'll rephrase it. Were there times when he was in the wine cellar with children?
Yes.
You have spoken to myself and various members of law enforcement in preparation for this case.
Correct.
Has anyone ever told you to tell anything but the truth?
That is correct, nobody did.
I'm sorry?
No.
Okay. Thank you. No further questions.
Just briefly. During the 20 years you worked at Neverland for Mr. Jackson, it was always his policy that children are not to be in the wine cellar, true?
Objection. Foundation.
Overruled. You may answer.
That is correct, yes.
And Mr. Jackson sometimes would give people tours of his own home, correct?
That is correct.
Objection. Beyond the scope.
Overruled.
And obviously, as the owner of the home, he can take people anywhere he wants in his home, right?
Correct.
Now, when you were driving Janet to Los Angeles, she never asked you to call the police, did she?
No.
When you arranged for the limousine to take the Arvizos to Los Angeles, they never asked you to call the police, did they?
No.
In fact, she never asked you to call the police at any time, did she?
No, she didn't.
No further questions.
Nothing further.
All right. Thank you. You may step down.
Your Honor, we'll call Jason Francia to the stand, please.
Your Honor, before we start, is there an instruction?
Yes.
Step up to the chair. Remain standing and face the clerk.
The clerk.
Raise your right hand, please.
I do.
Please be seated. State and spell your name for the record.
Jason Francia. And spell my last name? Francia.
Mr. Francia, I'm going to ask you to sit back with the bailiff just for a moment.
Okay.
To the witness, if you'll just have a seat while I instruct, please. To the jury, I can see you again. Laughter. Before, I'm going to give you a special instruction now. One of the things I want to mention before I give you these special instructions, though, is that I know this daylight savings time is tough on us. I was noticing a few drooping eyelids along here. If you start, feeling sleepy or something, hold up your hand, and maybe we'll stand up and stretch or something. It's really hard during these time changes, and I know that, so I just want you to know we can help you on that, too. Okay, I'm now going to instruct you on two different types of evidence which you may hear. One relates to a prior uncharged sexual offenses, and two relates to a prior conduct leading to possible uncharged sexual offenses. First, the instruction for the prior sexual offenses. If you find that the defendant committed a prior sexual offense, you may, but are not required to infer that the defendant had a disposition to commit sexual offenses. If you find that the defendant had this disposition, you may, but are not required to infer that he was likely to commit and did commit the crime or crimes of which he is accused. However, if you find, by a preponderance of the evidence, that the defendant committed a prior sexual offense, that is not sufficient, by itself, to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he committed the charged crime. If you determine an inference properly can be drawn from this evidence, this inference is simply one item for you to consider, along with all other evidence, in determining whether the defendant has been proved guilty beyond a reasonable doubt of the charged crime. Unless you are otherwise instructed, you must not consider this evidence for any other purpose. Within the meaning of the preceding instruction, the prosecution has the burden of proving, by a preponderance of the evidence, that the defendant committed sexual offenses other than for which he is on trial. You must not consider this evidence for any purpose unless you find, by a preponderance of the evidence, that the defendant committed sexual offenses. If you find other crimes were committed by a preponderance of the evidence, you are nevertheless cautioned and reminded that before a defendant can be found guilty of any crime charged in this trial, the evidence of the whole must persuade you beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant is guilty of that crime. This is the second part of the evidence. You will hear evidence that is being introduced for the purpose of showing conduct of the defendant leading to possible sexual offenses other than that for which he is on trial. This evidence, if believed, may not be considered by you to prove that Mr. Jackson is a person of bad character or that he has a disposition to commit crimes. It may be considered by you only for the limited purpose to determine if it tends to show a characteristic method, plan or scheme in the commission of criminal acts similar to the method, plan or scheme used in the commission of the offense in this case, which would further tend to show the existence of the intent, which is a necessary element of the crime or a motive for the commission of the crime charged. For the limited purpose for which you may consider such evidence, you must weigh it in the same manner as you do all other evidence in this case. You are not permitted to consider such evidence for any other purpose. Preponderance of the evidence means evidence that has more convincing force than that opposed to it. If the evidence is so evenly balanced that you are unable to find that the evidence on either side of an issue preponderates, your finding on that issue must be against the party who had the burden of proving it. You should consider all of the evidence bearing upon every issue regardless of who produced it. So, we have two possible types of evidence that you may hear, starting now. One relates to prior uncharged sexual offenses. That evidence, if the burden of proof, preponderance of the evidence is met, may be used to show a propensity to commit a similar crime. The second type of evidence that you may hear is evidence that, of conduct leading up to possible sexual offenses. And that may not be used to show a propensity to commit a crime. It can only be used to show the things that I mentioned to you. I won't go through them again. Complicated. Yes, I'll discuss it more with you later. It's just an advantage to have it given to you in advance of hearing the evidence.
Was the witness sworn?
He was sworn. You may proceed.
Mr. Francia, good afternoon. Sir, we've had to tell everybody so far that you need to stay fairly close to the microphone because it's hard to be heard in the far reaches of the courtroom otherwise. Tell me, how old are you at this time?
24.
Where do you work? What kind of work do you do?
I sell auto parts right now. And I run a mentoring program for kind of like the probation department. Probation department refers kids to me, to my organization, and we mentor them through them not being truants and not committing crimes again.
Let's start with the auto parts, and then we can go to the other ones.
Okay.
What do you do in the auto parts store?
I literally sell parts. If somebody comes to me with a car that's broken, and then they ask for advice, and I just sell them a starter or an alternator, or so on, so forth.
You've been doing that for about how long?
I did this prior, so 6, probably a little less than a year.
Okay. Let's go to the mentoring program. Who do you work for in the mentoring program?
Pete Taylor. It's through a church that I belong to, but yet it's still its kind of own identity. It's Foursquare Youth Programs. That's the official title.
And the nature of the work, by mentoring, what do you mean?
I'm the lead mentor. And the ultimate goal is, let me see, the probation department kind of says these kids need to be mentored. They needed to go through 3 programs. Sometimes community service, mentoring, or some sort of jobs program or something else. And I'm one of their steps to get off of probation. So what we try to do is match them up with a mentor, and that's my job, to try to match them up with mentors. And I take them out the first and third Saturdays of every month and we try, just hang out with them and show them that there's something more to life than crime, or than ditching, or than partying, or than drugs, or than anything else. There's more to life. We show them there's frisbee golf. I've showed the guys how to change the oil and change a tire. My wife is helping, and she shows them how to cook, make purses with the girls and...
You've been doing this for how long?
I've been doing this exact job, for about 6 months. This type of work for probably since I was 18.
Okay. When you were 18, did you start some kind of an internship program dealing with this?
Yeah. I have started an internship with Santa Maria Foursquare Church. Was pretty much training to work with junior high, to high school, to college-aged people. And I wanted to be trained in that, because I have a passion for that, so I started that. I did that for about 2.5 years with Santa Maria Foursquare Church.
Did you ever work as a youth pastor?
Yeah, I did that in 2003 to 2004, from my understanding. I can't really remember right now. I'm kind of nervous, just to let you guys know.
That's okay. What is a youth pastor?
Well, I was a youth pastor. That was, I guess, my official title. But I worked with 13-year-olds to 25 or 26-year-olds. And pretty much, it's kind of like its own little church within a church. And you work with junior high and high schoolers. And then what I try to do is address the collegers in a different format. And then I've had the college students help me with the junior hires and high schoolers. So just talk about ethics, God, morals, and doing good.
You've been doing HTIS consistently since age 18?
Yeah, pretty much.
Tell us which church this is again, please.
The one I was a youth pastor, I did that through Oceano Foursquare. It was really known as King's Way a long time ago, but pretty much Oceano Foursquare.
Mr. Francia, you've been living in the Santa Maria area for how long?
In the Santa Maria area, let me see. We moved up here in '88. Then I moved away when I graduated high school for like 4 months. And I'm still living here now.
Alright, you say, we moved up here in '88. Who moved in '88?
My mom and I. It was just me and my mom.
Based on what you tell us is your age, can I assume you were born in 1980?
Yes.
Okay. What type of work did your mother do when you moved up here?
She was working for Michael Jackson.
Alright. Is Michael Jackson in this courtroom today?
Yes.
And could you?
He's right there.
By telling us what he's?
He's the light-complected gentleman.
Thank you. Could the record so reflect, Your Honor?
Yes.
What type of work did your mother do for Michael Jackson?
She was a personal maid. At first she was just a maid. And from my understanding, my mom's just a hard worker and she moved up.
Was she his maid prior to moving up here to Santa Maria?
I don't know if she was his full-on, like, personal maid but she was, yeah, she was his maid.
From what period of time in Los Angeles was she working for Michael Jackson?
I think 86. But my mom tells me 85. I have no, it's around 86, 85. I don't know.
When did you first meet Mr. Jackson?
I was probably 6. I think 6 or 7. And the reason I say that is just it was a long time ago.
Did you ever have occasion to go to his residence in Los Angeles?
Yeah. The one in Encino, yeah. I went there probably a lot, like 10, 11, 12 times. I don't know. Often my mom. It was just me and my mom, so a single mom and just me. She needed to babysit me pretty much, so we had nobody else. No dad, no brothers and sisters.
Your father wasn't in the picture?
Correct.
And there was no other kids, is that correct?
That is correct.
During the time that you were living in Los Angeles before moving up to Santa Maria, from the time your mother began working for Mr. Jackson, tell us approximately how often you went to his residence.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Tell us approximately how often you went to his residence.
Throughout my whole life of my.
While living in Los Angeles.
Oh.
Before moving to Santa Maria.
I went to Encino. He owned a lot of stuff. But there's an Encino, which is like the big mansion, and then there's the, like, apartment hideaway thing. I think I went to Encino, which is the big mansion, I don't know, about 6, 7 times.
Did other members of the Jackson family reside at that location as well?
Yeah.
Can you tell us who lived there?
Mom and Dad, I know that. I think they lived above the garages. I think that's where I met them.
Okay.
I think Janet lived there as well. I don't know. Other than that, that's all I remember.
We're talking about almost 20 years ago, is that correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Did you go to a different location where Michael Jackson lived in the Los Angeles area as well?
Yeah, in the Los Angeles area. Yeah, like Hollywood.
And can you describe that place for us?
Yeah, it was. It didn't have much furniture. It was probably the 10th floor, because you could look over pretty much a lot of Hollywood and Beverly Hills. I think it was Beverly Hills. Didn't have a lot of furniture. Had a train set, had a couple toys, telescope, kitchen, but just not a lot of furniture. It was like a condo pretty much.
And the reason that you would go to that location?
My mom had to clean everything. My mom was just a clean lady.
Was she the only person cleaning his residence, as far as you knew?
No, there was other maids. But from my understanding, just my mom did a kickin' job. She just did a really good job at cleaning, a really good job at working just as a whole. She was just a good worker.
And there was nowhere to leave you when she went off to clean?
Yeah, sometimes she would leave me with my aunt, but my aunt had to go to work as well. Everybody in my family was workers.
Okay.
And even I helped my aunt at times.
Now, on the occasions when you would go to what was it called? The hideout or hideaway?
Yeah, my mom called it the hideout.
Do you know why?
Probably because nobody knew about it. I don't think it was registered.
Calls for speculation.
Withdraw the question. Did Mr. Jackson ever mention the name of that place to you in any of his conversations to you?
I don't remember.
All right. Was that something you enjoyed doing, going to either of those two places?
The mansion I did, just because of the arcade. I was young. It was fun. There was toys.
Tell us about the arcade at the mansion.
Shoot. It had an old karate game. It just had a lot of video games in there, and it was fun for kids. I think he even had a laser tag set. I don't remember, but he had a lot of stuff, a lot of toys.
There was a lot that you could do while you were there?
At the mansion, yeah.
And you enjoyed doing that?
Yeah.
Objection. Leading.
I'm sorry?
Overruled. Go ahead. Next question.
Okay.
At the other place, the place in Los Angeles, the hideaway, was that something you enjoyed doing?
Yes and no. There wasn't that many toys. My mom wouldn't let me go out anywhere else, and there wasn't that many toys. It was a condo, so it's not like I could play with the elevator all day long. There was not that many toys. There was just a train set. A train set gets boring. It just goes around in circles. And there wasn't that many toys.
Did you ever spend the night at either of those two locations?
Encino, the mansion I didn't, which is in Encino. And the hideaway we did, I believe, with my mom.
Alright. Do you know approximately how many occasions?
I don't recall. I don't remember.
Were there beds or furniture there?
I don't believe so. I think there was an L-shaped couch like one of those that you put in a corner. There was a chair. I know that, because, stuff. There wasn't that much furniture.
How old were you when you moved to Santa Maria?
88 or 89. 8 years old. Yeah, because I stopped playing baseball. Played baseball for a little.
When you moved to the Santa Maria area, what job did your mother have?
She was, I believe her title, from what she told me, was Michael Jackson's personal maid, and she had, like, all the keys. She was the best maid he had, I guess.
Did you ever go to Neverland?
Yeah, I did.
Tell us approximately how old you were during that period of time.
I think when it first opened, it was just, I went there. They probably had a party there. How old was I? Probably around 9, 8.
Approximately how many times do you think you went to Neverland?
5 or 4.
Always with your mother?
Yeah, there was no other way to get up there, yeah.
Did you ever spend the night at Neverland?
Yes. I remember distinctly, because I think I was hearing bats or something, on the ranch, or something, and I couldn't sleep, but I was sleeping with my mom, like in the same room, in the same area with my mom, and, yeah. I couldn't sleep.
Were you ever in Michael Jackson's bedroom?
Yes.
On how many occasions?
2, I think. 2. I'm pretty sure. One I know for sure, because we were all laying in the bed watching TV.
And who was we were all?
Michael and a bunch of other kids.
Okay. Do you know how many?
I don't. 7, 6. But I don't.
Do you know any of the names?
I'm really bad at names. Even to this day. I called you, Mark, earlier.
That's not me.
Yeah, I know.
Do you know how old you were when your mother stopped her employment at Neverland?
I'm thinking 11, because I remember hearing about. I was playing in the pool, and she told me, I quit.
You were playing in the pool where?
At a friend's house, and when I was 11, I was friends with him.
I'd like to go back to, if I could, please, the period of time in Los Angeles prior to moving up to Santa Maria. Was there ever an occasion that you were with Michael Jackson where something happened that made you feel uncomfortable?
Yes.
Did that happen more than once?
Yeah.
Do you have a recollection of these events?
Yeah.
Let's begin with the first one. What happened?
Okay, well, the first time that I felt uncomfortable with him was in the Hideout, which is the place in Encino, not in Encino, I'm sorry. In Hollywood. And, shoot, I was 7 and, I don't know, at 7 years old, I don't think, okay. I may have not felt uncomfortable, but then now I think about it, that shouldn't have been done. But I didn't feel uncomfortable.
What happened?
I was sitting on his lap, and I was young, and I was small. I'm still thin. I was even thinner then. Sitting on his lap, watching TV, which that's normal enough in itself. And then I was kind of facing the TV, and he was facing the TV as well, so my back was to his chest. And there was just one chair, and there wasn't much furniture in that hideout place. And I was just sitting there watching TV, and so was he. I think we were watching cartoons. And he just started tickling me, which, cool, shoot, I was a tickle guy. I tickled him back, but still kind of from the back, kind of reaching around. And then we went to the floor, I think, but I can't completely remember right now. But we somehow got on the floor, tickling still, because I'm doing these little kid things, when you shimmy back and forth. And then I'm tickling and he's tickling, and I'm tickling and he's tickling, and it eventually moved down to my little private region when you're a little kid. I don't know if you want me to call it specifically something, but around my crotch area. And I didn't, you're 7. I didn't think it was wrong. Well, I did. Because he's tickling, but I'm laughing, and I'm tickling him back, trying to get him to stop, but then I'm tickling too much. I'm laughing too much, and eventually it stopped. I don't know how.
Did he actually make contact with your genital area?
Not skin to skin, but, yeah, he was on my clothes, yeah.
Do you know for approximately how long?
Distinctly I can't remember. It was a while, though.
By a little while, can you give us a sense of it?
More than 3 minutes, less than 20. Less than 10 minutes, I think.
Okay.
but a while. It was tickling. It didn't end soon. It didn't end fast.
But the amount of time that his hand was actually in the region of your genitalia?
I cannot remember.
Okay. And you commented that this was not skin-to-skin touching. In other words, his hand directly on either your penis or testicles. Is that?
Objection. Asked and answered.
Overruled. You may answer.
That it was not directly on your genitalia. Is that correct? Correct. It wasn't. He didn't touch me. He was touching on top of the skin, but not on top of my shorts, but still.
Do you remember what you were wearing at the time?
Probably shorts. I don't remember specifically. I think those orange shorts that my mom made me, because, again, we were poor, but my mom made me clothes. And I was always wearing shorts, always wearing shorts.
And she had orange shorts that she had made for you?
Yeah, there was orange shorts that she made for me. And then yeah.
Were they shorts you wore a lot?
Probably, yeah, because, yeah.
As you think back now, today, of course we're talking about quite some number of years ago. Do you remember how you felt at the time this happened? If that was at all strange for you?
You know, I don't. I don't remember. At 7, I probably did think it was weird, but not super weird. Just because you're tickling, but I guess that would be weird. My fault.
Was there another instance?
Yeah.
Was that also at the hideout?
Yeah.
Tell us what happened, please.
I was watching cartoons again, and probably in the same room, because I think there was only one room in that whole place. And there was a sleeping bag involved. I don't know, I think I was on top of it. And I was watching TV, laying down on the ground, and Michael was pretty much behind me, like spooning me. I don't know how we got there. I was like 8.5. It was a little while after. And again with the tickling. But this time it wasn't as long, and I'm sorry. It was longer, but I wasn't laughing as much, I guess.
You were in a sleeping bag, or on a sleeping bag?
On, I think.
Okay.
On, not in.
Alright. Do you remember, you said this was in the hideout?
Yes.
Were there a number of rooms in the hideout?
I think there was only one, Yeah, I think there was only one, if I could hold on. There was a restroom. There was a kitchen. There was a big main room. And there was a room off to the left, if you're looking out the window. Yeah, I think there was only one.
Alright. Where was your mother during this time?
Probably cleaning. She was always cleaning.
But
to this day she cleans.
Do you know in what room at that point?
No, I don't. I don't know.
Was she in the room with you at the time?
No, she wasn't, or else she probably would have kicked my butt or something.
In the prior event that you described, was your mother in the room at that time?
No, she wasn't in the room.
But if you were at the hideout, then she was there. Is that a correct statement?
Correct. Or sometimes she may have run down to get something to eat. Remembering now, there was a couple times that Michael actually asked her to get chips, or get something from downstairs, or maybe even from the lobby. That's what I'm thinking.
What was downstairs? Was that
I think there was probably like a restaurant or something downstairs, but I have no clue.
But the apartment that you're describing is a single floor? There's no upstairs or downstairs to it.
Oh, yeah.
And this is a large building in Los Angeles?
Yeah.
Alright. When do you think was the last time that you had been to that building?
When was the last time I was there?
Yeah.
I'm thinking 9, 8.
Age 8 or age 9?
Yeah.
Even after you moved up to Santa Maria?
I believe so. Just because my mom had no one to leave me up in Santa Maria with. New town.
Let me go back to the second event. In the second event we're talking about, you were in a sleeping bag?
Yes.
Was there a bed in that room?
No.
Was that Mr. Jackson's bedroom, do you know?
I don't know.
Was there a television in that room?
Yes.
Was there more than one TV in that apartment, to your knowledge?
I don't think so.
Were you watching television at that time?
Yeah.
Do you remember if it was late at night or midday? Do you have any way of knowing?
It may have been midday, but I don't know.
Can you describe the building for us in general, in terms of how it was laid out?
Almost like a typical apartment or a condo. You walk in the front door, there's a big living room. There's a telescope in there. There's a bunch of toys. There's a couch. And then there's the kitchen.
Okay. The room that has the couch, is that the room where the sleeping bag was?
No, the room that has the couch didn't have any furniture but the chair, I think. I'm pretty sure.
And now the sleeping bag itself, on the floor?
Yes.
Was it a normal-sized sleeping bag?
I believe so. I would think so.
You used the expression, spooning. What does that mean?
Something that you do with your wife. Something that you do with a girlfriend. Spooning. Like.
Describe the position for us, if you would.
Wow. When somebody is holding you and you're laying on your side and they're holding you from behind.
Okay.
Thanks.
Was that the position that you were in with Mr. Jackson?
Yeah.
Were you in front or behind?
I was in front.
Do you remember where his arms were?
I couldn't specifically tell you.
Was the tickling done again?
Yeah.
Was this something that you and Mr. Jackson did frequently, tickling?
Whenever something happened.
Okay. On this occasion, when he was tickling you, what happened?
We were tickling. Oh, he was tickling me at first, and I was just watching TV, probably cartoons again. And he was just tickling me from behind, and in my genital area. And I was laughing, and I was trying to tickle him back. And, go ahead.
His hands made contact with your genitalia?
From the top of the clothes.
Do you remember what you were wearing on that occasion?
Probably shorts again.
Simply because you do?
Simply because it's hot in LA, yeah, and I always wore shorts. I think every picture I have, well, not every, but there was a lot of pictures of me wearing shorts when I was younger.
Are you mindful of his hand reaching your crotch at the time? You were thinking about that at the time?
Objection. Leading.
I don't even know what he asked me.
Just a moment.
I don't understand, yeah.
Thank you. Were you aware of it happening while it was happening?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And how long was his hand there?
2 cartoons worth. A cartoon and a half worth.
And you were watching cartoons on television at the time?
Yeah.
How long is a cartoon? It's been a while since I've seen one.
It's been a while for me, too. Does anybody here watch cartoons?
Tell us the best of your recollection. We can't let them be witnesses at the moment.
The Woody Woodpecker, I guess, would last 4, 5 minutes.
Okay.
5, 6 minutes.
So the contact in the area of your genitalia was at least 4 or 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Did it feel strange to you at the time?
Yes and no. No, because it's all fun, and it's supposed to be innocent, and you're a little kid, and you're having fun, and you're a little kid.
Okay.
And, yes, it's not right.
Did Mr. Jackson ever give you money?
Yeah.
On how many occasions did he give you money?
Pretty much at every tickle thing there was money.
Explain that. What you mean by that, at every tickle thing there was money. Explain what you mean, please.
Every time I was being tickled, there was always some sort of money exchanged. Not exchange. There was money given. It was just that.
Before, after, during?
After. And it was kind of don't tell your mom about the money.
Well, what would he give you?
$100 bill.
$100 bill?
Yeah.
Did he do this on more than one occasion?
Yeah, because I had a lot of money. Well, I didn't have a lot of money. My mom took the money, because she would find out that I got $100 bills, and then she'd get mad at me for taking some strangers, well, not strangers, but somebody's money.
Do you remember if, in fact, you got the money on both of those 2 occasions?
Yeah, I did.
Were there ever any other occasions, whether in Los Angeles or any other occasion or any other location where something happened that made you feel uncomfortable?
Yeah.
And where was that?
At the ranch.
Do you remember how old you were?
10 and a half, 10. I was older.
And you have a recollection of this event?
Yeah.
There's water there also, if you need anything.
Oh, I was wondering. I thought it was coffee. I was hoping it wasn't.
No, it's water. And feel free to take some if you need some.
Okay.
You think you were about 10 or 10 and a half?
Yeah.
It was prior to the time that your mother quit her job there?
Yeah.
Did you ever go back to Neverland after your mother quit her job there?
No.
Do you remember where this event took place, where at Neverland?
What, the event?
That made you feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, it was in the arcade room. There was a loft area.
Describe what the arcade is.
A place where there's a bunch of video games, and there was a pool table, and I think there was a fireplace. I think that was up in the loft. I think. That was a long time ago. But, yeah, it's Street Fighter, the original one, in there, and pool tables, and a couple of other video games.
On what part of the arcade were you at the time this happened?
I was in the loft.
Upstairs?
Yeah.
Was anybody else up there with you?
No.
Was Mr. Jackson there?
Yeah.
By other people, I mean other people than you and Mr. Jackson.
It was just him and I.
Do you recall approximately what time of day or evening it was?
No, nighttime.
Was your mother working that day?
Yes.
Were there ever occasions when you were at Neverland and your mother wasn't working?
Yeah, when we'd have parties and stuff, but I think she'd still work, because she'd always walk around cleaning even though she wasn't dressed for it.
Were there ever occasions when you were at Neverland and your mother was not there?
No, she was always there.
On this occasion, was your mother in the arcade?
No.
Was she working that day?
Probably.
Do you remember where her assignment would have taken her? Did she go to specific locations?
In the ranch?
Yes.
At the ranch area. She was cleaning everything.
Okay.
She wasn't in the arcade.
Okay. And what happened when you were in the arcade?
In the loft?
Yes, please.
I think I was playing Sega Genesis.
Tell us what that is, please.
It's a video game. I was just a video game playing kid.
Okay.
There was a video game. There was a TV up there, I believe. It was a really big TV, and I was playing, and then he started tickling me, and I think there was a couch up there, because we somehow managed to end up on the couch. It took a lot of counseling to get over, just to let you know.
Objection. Move to strike. Non-responsive.
I'm sorry.
Let's see if we can restrict our answers just to the questions, if we can. I'll ask you some questions about that later. You were on the couch. Do you know if both of you were sitting on the couch?
Hold on. We were laying down on the couch.
Okay. How were you laying down? How were you positioned relative to Mr. Jackson?
Probably about, no, it was in the spooning position again.
Okay. Was he behind you or in front of you?
Behind me.
And then what happened?
We were tickling, well, he was tickling and I was laughing. He was tickling me in the. So much happening right now. Can we take a break or something?
Can we take just a moment, Your Honor?
Okay, sure.
Just a break for a moment or two. Okay.
All right.
You were on the couch, and you said in the spooning position?
Yeah.
Tell us what happened, please, the best you can.
He was tickling me, and then I was wearing shorts again, I'm pretty sure, and, yeah, because he had to have reached under. We were tickling, I was laughing. He reached on my leg, and I'm still laughing, and he's tickling. And then he reached up and to my privates, yeah.
Did he actually touch your?
Yeah.
Touch you?
Yeah.
Did he touch your penis or your testicles?
I think option 2, yeah.
Your testicles?
Yeah, that one.
For what period of time?
I don't remember. 3 minutes, 2 minutes.
Was it tickling?
Probably, because I think I was still laughing. But, you know, it may have been the other hand.
Were you mindful of it at the time? Were you aware at the time he was doing it?
Yes.
What were you thinking at the time? You're now 10.5 years old. What were you thinking?
I should probably go.
How did it end? Do you know?
Either my mom. I don't remember how it ended.
Do you have a sense of it?
Huh.
Do you remember getting up?
No.
Did you think about it afterward?
Yeah, no, well, not instantly right afterwards. You're 10. You don't want to think about that stuff.
Was Mr. Jackson still giving you money at that time?
That time I didn't get any money.
Did you tell anybody about that right afterward?
No.
Did you tell your mother, ever?
No. I don't even think to this day she knows.
Alright. At some point in time this became known to somebody, is that right?
Yeah.
Who did you tell? Who was the first person you told about it?
Probably God, but.
Let's go to number 2, then. Who was the second person?
Move to strike that comment, Your Honor. Non-responsive.
Well, it's responsive. Overruled. Go ahead.
Who else did you?
Who did I tell? I forgot their names, but there was 2 detectives. Yeah, I told those 2 guys.
Before or after your mother had quit her position at Neverland?
She had already quit.
Alright. At some point in time police came to you and said they wanted to talk to you, is that right?
Objection. Leading.
This is going to be hard for me to get through. Sorry.
Okay. The objection is overruled. You may answer.
Go ahead.
Yeah, they wanted to come and talk to me. I was 13. I was in 8th grade, I think. Yeah.
Around 1993?
Yeah, it was 93, I think. Yeah.
Did you know in advance that they wanted to speak with you?
No, not until the big day that this crappiness started.
Okay. At some point in time, they showed up?
Yeah, they showed up probably around 4 o'clock, because I had judo practice at, 6 o'clock.
So it was about, I'm sorry, you had judo practice afterward?
Yeah, I had to go to judo practice right after, and I don't think I went because I was crying.
So you think it was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon?
I think they came around 4 o'clock.
Do you remember how many people came?
I think 2, but I don't remember.
Was your mother present during the course of that interview?
No.
Do you know if that interview was tape recorded?
Yeah, it was tape recorded because I listened to the tapes.
You listened to it recently?
Yeah.
Do you know if a transcription had ever been prepared of that interview?
Yeah, it has been.
And did you, in fact, review that transcription as well?
Yeah, while I was reading it, yeah.
The people who were present during the course of that interview, you and how many detectives?
2 detectives. Me and 2 other guys.
They were both men?
Yeah.
Did you know them prior to that time?
No.
Have you seen either one of them since?
Yeah, I just bumped into one outside. We were talking a while. I was waiting to be called up here.
Okay. Just today, right before you testified you saw one of them?
Yeah.
Did you recognize him?
No, I didn't. He said, "You probably don't remember me." And I said, "No." And he told me who he was. And then I was like, "Hey, that was you."
Do you know where they were from, the agency?
The police?
Yes.
No.
At the time that you were having that conversation?
No.
I don't mean now, but at the time you had the conversation with them.
No, I just knew they were police officers.
Did you know they were tape recording it at the time?
Yeah, because he showed me the tape recording. And the tape recorder was sitting right in front.
Did you know what it was all about at the time you sat down at the table with them?
I knew it was about Michael Jackson just because it was on TV all the time, and, yeah.
So there was already something going on in the news, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Did your mother know that you were entering an interview with them?
Yes. She had to have let me go.
Alright.
My mom knew where I was at all times.
Do you remember where you were for this interview?
Yeah, at the juvenile hall, or the sheriff's department.
So it was over in where, in Santa Maria?
Yeah, in Santa Maria. Well, in Orchid, but, yeah, in the sheriff's department.
Do you recall how long that conversation was?
I don't recall. An hour and a half.
Alright. And that's consistent with your having reviewed that tape recording as well?
Right.
And your mother did know that you were going to be there, is that right?
Yes.
Was she at the building at the time you were there?
I don't think so. I think she was in our little studio apartment still.
Okay. In the course of that interview, did you discuss with them what had happened to you?
Let me drink some water.
Go ahead.
Pump?
It's confusing. There's a button on the top.
I'm not a coffee drinker, sorry. It's a coffee thing, I think. I'm sorry. What was the question again?
Did you discuss with the detectives what had happened to you with Mr. Jackson?
Yes. Eventually. But at first I didn't want to. I was fighting it with everything that I could.
Why?
Because it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing now, and I'm 24 years old.
Okay. Was it harder then, at age 13?
Yeah.
Objection. Relevance. Move to strike. Leading.
Sustained. Stricken.
Ultimately.
It was difficult for me.
Did you disclose to them the information that you gave us today?
Yes.
At some point in time, did you have an interview or were you represented by a private lawyer?
At some point, yeah, in time I was.
Do you remember the name of that lawyer?
Yeah. Terry Cannon. And Chris Coleman.
There were 2 lawyers who represented you.
Yeah.
Do you know if, was this after this interview?
Yes, it was after this interview. It was like 2 months after this interview, I think.
Were you ever called for a deposition?
I was never called for a deposition.
Did you ever know a young man by the name of Jordan Chandler, or Geordie Chandler?
Objection. Relevance.
Did I?
Relevance. Foundation. Move to strike.
Overruled. You may answer.
Did I ever meet him?
Yes.
I probably did, but I don't remember names. I'm really bad with names. And I'm not.
Do you know if you were being prepared at any time to give a deposition in a case involving Mr. Chandler?
No. What, prepared by? I don't know what you mean by prepared.
Did your attorneys ever talk to you about the possibility of your going in and giving a deposition?
No, I don't think so. I don't remember.
At some point in time, was there a settlement of some kind of a case involving you and Mr. Jackson? We're not going to get into the specifics of the amounts, but was there a settlement?
Yes.
Do you know if a lawsuit was ever actually filed?
No, I don't think so, no. Because there was a settlement, so there was no lawsuit.
All right. Did you have anything to do with it? In other words, did you say anything one way or the other about asking to have money?
No.
But were you consulted in any way about what was going to happen on that?
No.
Okay. Did you go into counseling at this time?
Yeah.
And?
Objection. Relevance.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I think it's relevant.
And leading.
I'll allow the question. The question and answer was, yes.
For what period of time did you stay in counseling?
Objection. Relevance. 352.
I believe it's appropriate under People v. Bledsoe and Shirley.
Go ahead. I'll allow the question.
For what period of time did you stay in counseling?
Shoot. Like a week after the sheriffs interviewing me, or police, or whoever they were. And?
That's when it started?
Till I was 18, yeah.
Till you were 18?
Yeah.
Mr. Francia, recently have you been under surveillance?
Yeah.
Objection. Relevance. 352.
We might be going there. I don't know.
I'm not sure what the relevance is. Do you want to approach?
Yes, I think so. Discussion held off the record at sidebar.
Looks like it's time for our afternoon break.